last, and the last first. Please be seated. What is clear is that the call to discipleship and the call to follow Jesus is not just an additional obligation you have as a Christian. No, it judges, replaces, and subordinates all obligations and allegiances to Him who says, "Follow me." In verse 17, as Jesus was, quote, setting out on his journey, a man runs up. He kneels before Jesus and asks him a question. Quote, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" In Matthew's gospel, he identifies this man as, quote, young. And in Luke's gospel, he identifies the man as a, quote, ruler. Therefore, you often hear this story referred to as being about the rich young ruler. This young man presents himself as a type A personality. He seems ambitious and highly motivated. And unlike Jesus' disciples up to this point, he asks a really important question. Jesus, however, does not immediately answer the question, which is interesting. Quote, "And Jesus said to him, 'Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone.'" Jesus' response here is understandable because in Judaism, only God was called good. Rabbis were called many different names, but rarely was a rabbi called a good teacher for fear of blaspheming against God. And moreover, Jesus was still hiding his messianic identity from the general public. While he had revealed his messianic identity to his disciples by this point, he was still keeping it a secret from the general public, and most important, from the Roman governors. Then Jesus gives an answer by summarizing the ethical commandments found in the 10 Commandments. Verse 19, "You know the commandments. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not defraud, honor your father and mother." Now, read this list carefully. Do you notice anything here? Jesus is adding something to the 10 Commandments. Quote, "Do not defraud." This command not to defraud the poor may have been added in this instance because of the special relevance it had to this rich man with whom Jesus was talking. Why? Well, because wealth is sometimes gained at the expense of the poor. Or as the 19th century French novelist Honoré de Balzac once observed, "Behind every great fortune, there lies a great crime." Moving to verse 20, the young man asks what he should do in order to inherit eternal life. Quote, "Teacher, all these things I have kept from my youth." Now, if you're like me, the first couple times I read this, I was saying to myself, "Dude, really? Really? You've kept all the commandments?" What kind of arrogant punk says something like this? "Oh, I'm perfect." Didn't Jesus teach that evil intent is the same as committing an evil deed? Is this guy saying that he's never had any bad thoughts? anyone who says that he or she has not had any bad thoughts is a first-class liar. But note that the Ten Commandments speak only of acts, and these could be kept, even if a person's intent was otherwise. In fact, in the Judaism of Jesus' day, it was assumed that an observant Jew could in fact keep all of the commandments. Remember, the Apostle Paul, as he reflected on his pre-Christian days, in the book of Philippians, chapter 3, verse 6, Paul says, quote, as to righteousness under the law, blameless. Right? Paul said he was blameless. One expert on first century Judaism wrote this, quote, that a person possessed the ability without exception to fulfill God's commandments